Your sleep is not something that is outside of your control. It's not a separate event. It is a reflection of how your body experiences your life. Have you ever gone to bed tired, but then you can't really sleep, like fall asleep immediately? Not because your body doesn't feel tired or exhausted, but just because your mind wouldn't stop working. To put it in another sense, your mind is just way too wired to be able to sleep. Well, this is where a lot of people misunderstand, is because a lot of us think that sleep is something of a discipline problem. If only I can sleep earlier, or if only I can reduce screen time. But actually, sleep is naturally something that you cannot force, right? It is something that happens when you have your biology, your nervous system, and your mind all working in the same direction. It is a powerful formula that I teach my clients in my 12 weeks coaching program, which, shameless plug, is the best program and most comprehensive program for those who are already in the glimpse of burnout, those professionals who are trying to improve their capacity to transform their mind, their body, their emotions, because this finally puts them in their highest potential. Cool, right? So in this video, I wanted to break down these 3 steps that is science-backed and body-based shifts that you can actually implement right after this video that improves your sleep without any sleeping pills or supplements like melatonin even. Hi, my name is Baita, and if you're new here, I am a psychology-based wellness instructor. I teach women how to bring back their personal power back into their life, right? I believe that every one of us deserves to explore our higher self. So let's break down these 3 grounded, science-backed, body-based shifts that actually can improve your sleep through the lens of psychology, yoga, and your actual biological rhythm. Let's get straight into it, right? Step 1, stabilizing your circadian rhythm, because your body works on internal clock. Your sleep is actually governed by circadian rhythm, right? A 24 hours biological system that regulates when you wake up, when you feel sleepy, when you feel drowsy, when you feel hungry. This system is controlled by a part of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, right, which responds primarily to light. So every single time your sleep timing changes, right, sleeping at 11 or sleeping at 1 a.m. in the morning or sleeping at 9 p.m., right, and then next day working late, working on weekend, over consuming caffeine just to stay awake, what you're doing is actually confusing your internal biological clock. And over time, your body stops knowing when it is actually safe to let go and rest, right? From a psychological perspective, right, this creates something called sleep dysregulation. Your brain stops trusting when recovery is going to happen. So it remains slightly in the elevated state mode. You know, this is what we call as hypervigilance, which is a form of coping as a form of protection or control, right? And this doesn't just affect your sleep, it affects your quality of your next day, affects your focus your next day, affects the quality of work that you do even the next day. So sleep isn't just about resting, it is about setting the tone for the next day. And long-term unstable circadian rhythm, right, can start affecting your focus, right? Like what I said earlier, your cognitive ability, the clarity, the ability to concentrate at work, right? Your emotional regulation. When you are losing patience during conversations, right? When you are less tolerant to stress, when you feel hormonal imbalances, appetite cues, energy consistency throughout the day, constantly stimulating yourself with caffeine. It affects your memory when you're unable to remember things. It delays your decision making. See how it affects every single part of your day, right? This is why a lot of us feel exhausted, but mentally we are still wired, right? You may notice some of these symptoms, right? If you're becoming more irritable with your loved ones, you are lashing to them, snapping faster in the conversations, right? Like you're impatient to just give an answer or respond. You are struggling to be emotionally present, especially to those that needs you to see them and hear them and care for them. Brain fog during work meetings, like when you are in the middle of presenting something and you just black out, forgetting things constantly, right? Like you're out for work, but then you forget your keys, you forget your bag, you forget your stuffs, right? These aren't just random. Ultimately, this is giving rise to feeling disconnected from yourself by the evening. You feel like you no longer have power through your days, right? Because when your biological rhythm is actually disrupted, your nervous system is also affected. It starts operating from survival instead of reset and restore, and eventually poor sleep not just affects you, it affects your relationship, your productivity, your confidence, and even your sense of self. So how powerful your sleep can be. I've seen this impacting high functioning women who say, I am managing, right? But internally, their body hasn't rested for months, for years even. Here is what can actually reset your sleep, right? First, wake up the same time every day. Try to do this as a habit. This is more important than your sleep time. Get natural light exposure early in the morning, right? Morning sunlight signals to your brain it is time to be awake, so start the clock. It signals your body to function well. 3, another simple thing you can do is avoid long naps during the day. Short periods of time is fine, like 15 minutes, 30 minutes. But longer duration, it reduces your natural sleep pressure at night, right? And this, from a yoga perspective, this is about living in alignment with the rhythm you were born into, right? You are a biological being. So this traditional system, call it Ritucharya, or cyclical living, right? Your body tends to relax when your life becomes more predictable. There are certain things that we cannot control. There are certain things that we can control. And sleep is part of the things that you can bring control. Because ultimately, sleep is your safety signals and it is deeply connected to your rhythm. Step number 2, down-regulate your nervous system from the micro survival mode to rest mode. This is like a huge reason why people cannot sleep, although they are tired, right? It's because your nervous system is constantly activated when you're working, when you're constantly occupied with doing things, when you're constantly required to answer your phone calls, emails, notifications. All of this is pushing your body into a stressed mode. That is pushing your nervous system into fight, flight, freeze, response mode constant. As a result, your cortisol hormones, right, the stress hormones in your body remains elevated all the time. And then your heart rate is always slightly higher, right? People develop high blood pressure a lot because of their stress hormones, right? Your muscle remains always tensed, right? You feel like you are in this position all the time because you're just waiting for this war and fight. And this also signals your brain to keep scanning for everything as problem and pushing it to a mode of solving. So even when you lay down on your bed, right, your body still thinks that it is in a war and has the need to constantly protect you. That is why it is so hard to just let go, right? In yoga philosophy, sympathetic activation is something of a Rajasic energy. Rajasic meaning restless, overactive, constantly moving, a little bit more masculine. The parasympathetic nervous system activation is a sattvic energy, a more calm, more grounded, and more receptive kind of energy, right? And sleep helps so much. Sleep only happens when your body shifts from sympathetic to parasympathetic dominance, right? They are always in fight with each other. But many of us unknowingly are training ourselves to stay activated all the time until the moment we are forced to sleep. Overthinking, ruminating, working late, checking emails, checking notifications, constantly deciding, constantly wearing out your mental fatigue, replaying conversations, reading messages in the middle of the night, constantly scrolling. And then when we expect our body to suddenly switch off and sleep, that is when we feel like, oh my god, I'm having sleep issues. That transition did not happen overnight or did not happen instantly, right? This is built up from micro survival leading to emotional reactivity. Like we are not patient with people anymore. We are constantly rushing. Everything is in a rush, right? Anxiety and overwhelm is so normalized in our society. Shallow breathing and having hard time even complete lung breathing. Chronic fatigue, burnout, poor stress tolerance. Granted, today we live in a modern world that requires us to multitask so many things, but this is slowly pushing us to our survival mode. And when we have poor stress tolerance, what happens? It affects our relationship, it increases conflicts, not just in relationship, also at work, in families, in home settings, right? It literally pours out in other areas of your life. And what happens is when your nervous system is constantly overloaded with things, your capacity to hold better, to build abundance in your body reduces and shrinks. You become less patient, less resilient, and less emotionally available, right? Even the smallest inconvenience starts to feel emotionally heavy, right? Even waiting in the queue for your escalator or waiting in the queue to get your coffee feels like you're waiting forever. Or even driving, right? How many of us are so impatient, right? We are screaming and shouting at the person in front of us as if we are expecting an empty lane. And this is where so many of us are unknowingly losing our quality of life because your body has forgotten what safety and restoration actually feel like, right? To support your nervous system before sleep. Practice some of these things that I'm going to share here, right? Practice slow breathing, right? When you inhale fill up your lungs, feel the air in your lungs. And when you exhale longer, like 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. When you practice slow breathing, right, with longer exhales, do this just for 1 minute a day. It totally activates your parasympathetic nervous system and signals safety to the brain and says, no matter what is going on around me, I still have control over my breath. I still have control over how I respond. I still have control over how I react. Right? See how powerful it is? 2, try practicing gentle movement, right? Like forward folds or legs up the wall poses, right? These really help slow down your nervous system, signaling them to say, hey, it's okay. No matter how chaotic your day is, you are here now. So I'm signaling you to just be in the presence and just relax, right? This is something that we can always take control of. And 3, reduce stimulation, especially in the nighttime, right? If we are constantly stimulated, right? This is not just something to do with scrolling. This is also emotional conversation, problem solving, stressful content, right? All of this news and constant notification and constant us doing something, although not physically, in the mind, you stay activated for the longest time, and of course it's going to affect our sleep. So this is not just a superficial self-care sleep routines. This is something that your body needs because sleep creates biological preparation for deep deep rest. The quality of your next day depends on your sleep tonight. The quality of your relationship tomorrow depends on the sleep quality that you have today. The quality of your thinking for the next day depends on the night's sleep. This is how important your sleep is. And step 3, reduce cognitive arousal. When your body is physically calm, right, your mind can still have the possibility of being awake, isn't it? Because the brain does not sleep well with emotional loops that are open. You know, the brain wants an answer, right? Psychologically, this is called cognitive arousal. This is when your mind keeps running through thoughts, unfinished conversation, future worries, mental to-do list, the next day tasks, regret, emotional processing that never got a closure. And your brain treats these thoughts, right, like unresolved issues. So instead of allowing your body and mind to sleep, it keeps you awake, trying to solve life problems at 1 a.m. in the morning. Haven't you had that before? This is especially common in high achieving people, right? Caregivers, overthinkers, women carrying so much emotional labor for everyone around them, the children, the parents, the family. So your body may be lying in the bed physically, but mentally you are still either in the past or in the future. Over time, this chaos in the cognition becomes an overload, and it affects more than just your sleep. It affects your focus and concentration. It affects your creativity. It affects your problem-solving skills. It affects your memory as we grow older, right? It affects your emotional regulation, and it affects communication in relationship, right? You may notice this in your real life, right? Difficulty listening fully even during important conversations, right? Your mind is going somewhere else. Zoning out when people are talking, meaning your focus retention is just not there. Repeating the same sentences multiple times, like you're on autopilot, right? Procrastination, because your brain just feels too much of cognitive overload, right? And suddenly you feel emotionally numb. You don't even understand what is going on in your mind, in your body, and it feels a little bit difficult to comprehend things. Because the mind, your brain, is never designed to carry overload without any recovery in place, right? To interrupt all this cognitive arousal, what we can do is take 5 to 10 minutes brain dump before bed, right? You can write down everything that you have in your mind that your mind is constantly replaying. Next, you can write down 3 priorities for the next day. What you can do is it gives the brain a commitment and a structure, right? And 3, practice Yoga Nidra. This is such a transformational practice that I teach my students. When you're practicing Yoga Nidra, you're bringing your body into a meditative state. You're shifting from thinking into a state of scanning, right? First, we do scanning, and then we go into visualization, and it brings your body into the state of activated parasympathetic nervous system that affects your brain waves, which is such powerful tool. Yoga Nidra is especially powerful because it guides the brain into a state known as the hypnagogic state. It is a state that bridges between wakefulness and sleep. This is where your alpha brain wavelengths are more prominent. This is exactly where your sleep restoration begins, right? Not through constantly forcing yourself or discipline yourself to become an early sleeper, right? But through surrender. Because when you surrender, a lot of beautiful things happen, right? Your body heals, your sleep quality becomes better, your deep state of healing happens. So if you have been struggling with sleep and thinking that it's about fixing your bedtime or being more disciplined, I just need to sleep early, shift this thought. It is about aligning these 3 things: your body clock, your nervous system, and your mental load, right? When all of these are bridged together, your sleep is not something that is outside of your control. It's not a separate event. It is a reflection of how your body experiences your life. So when you combine these three pillars together, your sleep feels less like a battle. Your sleep feels more productive, deeper, and healing at the same time. You will notice that you wake up even without alarm, and it becomes a natural consequence of your safety, rhythm, and regulation. Right? If this resonates with you, I share more about nervous system healing, psychology, stress recovery, and yoga-based wellness tools here in the channel. And let me remind you, you don't need to change everything overnight, but starting with one shift, one rhythm, one reset that supports your body goes a long way. Now I'll see you in the next one.